Hello, and welcome to The Real Agent, where we pull back the curtain on all things real estate. We're your hosts, Mary Jo, and Christina. And today I'm super excited. We have my great friend, Lindsay Sukornyk, a transformational leadership coach, yoga teacher, TEDx speaker, and prolific writer who is a highly sought after presenter, committed to leading global change makers towards a state of fully being alive and awake. She skillfully weaves experiential work with elite leaders, fusing research on flow states and mindfulness with insights from ancient wisdom traditions to help activate the highest human potential. Yay! Hi! She's in Costa Rica, though, so wish we were there with you.
I know. Next time. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being on our podcast today.
Marie's had such nice things to say about you, so I'm very excited to get to know you a little bit better.
I'm so excited as well. You guys are the powerhouse, amazing team. I'm so
powerhouse. I mean, that's coming from that intro.
Yeah. We're in good company.
Exactly. So tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? Other than the intro, let our audience know about you.
I would say that I'm like a humble student of life. If I had to summarize who I am, I'm on a curious exploration of the human experience, and I'm here to really explore all of it. And I really like to dance on the edge of aliveness, and I seek out parts of life that are new, that are exciting, that may be confronting. So I have always been obsessed with people and human behavior. I am obsessed with nature and connecting to the power of nature, the energy of nature. I grew up running around barefoot in Northern Ontario on a farm with 16 cousins. And then I went on to have 4 kids. So I love to be a mom and help them to experience life to the fullest. And in my career, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to create spaces and experiences and to be a guide for other people to explore all that their human experience has to offer.
I met you a few years ago, and when I met you, I knew you were a big part in the corporate world. Like you were training CEOs.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah. So that's more of my resume side of things, which is that I started out, I went to Queen's Commerce and did an undergrad there. I got recruited into consulting, into strategy consulting. So I have a really strong strategic analytical mind, and I actually love that part of myself. And I got recruited into a career in consulting because of those gifts that I have. But I quite quickly realized that although I was really good at it, it wasn't my passion. And I felt lost. I felt numb. I felt like I was in this place, but not of this place. And I had the opportunity, the wisdom, the courage at a quite young age to leap over the cliff into the unknown. And I left that career and stumbled in by total accident, like every single thing I've ever done in my life, into the field of coaching and transformational leadership when it was really in its infancy about 22 years ago. And I thought it was so weird and so flaky and so fringe and all these things. And then I was talking about emotional intelligence and positive psychology and all these things when they were really in their infancy. Mindfulness. I was deeply immersed also in a yogic path and ultimately became a deeply trained yoga teacher. And by accident, I actually thought I just wanted to leave corporate and rescue everyone from corporate. I kept getting invited back into corporate. And it's been one of the many lessons of my life where when we think we know what we're supposed to do or where we're supposed to go, I'm at the point now where I'll say, I know nothing. I just wake up every day. I do my morning practices. I try to get as still as I can. And I get guidance all day, every day from my intuition, from my my highest intelligence and wisdom. And by maybe some kind of universal giggle and joke, I keep getting invited back into these very elite corporate leadership. I was just in Davos about 3 weeks ago with elite global leaders. And I think that the reason I get invited in is because I can speak that language because of my background and my ability to think in those ways. But what I'm really doing is listening and then translating a lot of the real human wisdom that I think is really what allows people to thrive. and, alleviate suffering and ultimately activate our highest, not only intelligence, but joy, bliss, presence, and ultimately impact in the world. And the reason that I get really excited about working in those circles is that happens to be where a lot of the power on the planet is held. And there are really huge opportunities when we can tap into compassionate, conscious, embodied leadership in people who are managing potentially billions of dollars, leading millions of people, writing Hollywood movies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It makes me feel excited about the possibility for shifting the consciousness of the planet and of humanity. And that relates to how we treat the planet, how we treat each other, how we lead, how we live, how we raise our children. So for me, it's a very stimulating and exciting. And plus, I always do love to loop back into the strategy kind of part of myself. So when I'm speaking with leaders, it's as much about shifting their consciousness, doing the deep inner work to clear themselves of the inevitable wounding and trauma that we all have, but that's particularly potent in those circles, which is an interesting thing that I've observed over my lifetime. But also then to translate that back into how do they run their businesses, invest their money, lead their groups, et cetera. So I really love that interplay between strategy, leadership, and ancient wisdom, consciousness, personal development.
So inspiring. I'm a huge, huge fan. I think it's brilliant. I love this holistic approach. And I'm so fortunate to actually be a part of your life and see that it's not just what you're saying, it's actually how you're living. And I think it's amazing. And it's something that I also strive to be a part of. And I think it's just like, it's really what we're trying to bring into our business as well. And just really focus on the joy and the bliss, like you said, and really be in that flow state and allow people to see that it's not just, hippie, like beach people sitting around surfing all day, although that is a big part of it, which is a beautiful part of it. But it's also people who are really serious about making change and actually affecting the world in a positive way. It's a huge impact. So I really love it. And I was really inspired by your post. And that's kind of when it was like this amazing idea to get you on here and you accept it. So we're so grateful. I wanted to talk more about that because, AI is becoming really big right now. And I really loved your perspective on that. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I was fresh back from Davos. So it was it was the hot topic in Davos, which is the gathering around the World Economic Forum. For those who aren't familiar with that, it's where global leaders come from around the world to create policies, to make agreements, to have important conversations. And then there's a whole ecosystem around the World Economic Forum where these companies show up and groups show up, and it's really stimulating. AI was by far on every single company group, organization's posters. It's like, oh, is such and such an AI. And so I was like, interesting. And I also have had the privilege of having a client he runs a venture capital fund. And one of their main areas of investment is in the existential risk of AI. So I've been hearing for over 5 years from him directly as a client and as a friend about the risks of AI. So I am very curious about the role that technology can play in enhancing our lives and, supporting our intuition, our embodiment, our knowing. And I'm less impressed by the promise that everything is going to be the one-hit wonder, the like fix everything. And I also get concerned about the dehumanization. And I have a number of concerns, and I'm not even going to discuss today because it's not really on my area of expertise about the existential risks in terms of, I don't know, like AI taking over, whatever, military systems. That's not even something that I'll address. I'm going to speak more from a leadership consciousness, human potential perspective today. And so when we look at, for example, I just saw the other day, somebody had shown their vision of their ideal home, which was generated by AI. And full disclosure, I have spent zero time actually interacting with AI. So this is completely theoretical and just from a commentary on human development, that I see this excitement, and specifically in the worlds of tech startups and programmers and those people who tend to err on the side of the mind, like I have the analytical, strategic, the excitement about the role that technology can play, and even the excitement about kind of like a new toy to play with. Like, what is this whole AI thing? Just like, what is this whole blockchain thing, which was like 5-10 years ago? And so it's kind of a repeated pattern of becoming enamored by something, in this case, AI. And it just makes me question at the expense of what. And so one of the things that I've been really committed to in my, really since I was in undergrad at Queen's for over 25 years, is the idea of tapping into the ultimate natural highs, the infinite intelligence that exists in nature, in our bodies, in our intuition. And there are many ways to access those things. For example, many people experience things like plant medicine ceremonies in order to understand the access to interdimensional, exposure, information, downloads. And through my immersion in, well, also full disclosure, I did experiment a lot with drugs and alcohol as a teenager. So I have experienced these kind of access points. But I've been really curious about how
when you were doing it as a teenager, were you doing it because you were a teenager, or were you having these types of like experiences as well? Yeah, ceremonies when you were a teenager.
No, it was definitely not ceremonial. It was definitely
you were so ahead of your time.
Ceremonial about it. No, nothing like that. So, but what I realized
in North Ontario, they do things differently.
Oh yeah.
Differently up there. I like no joke about that. But I had early access to these mind-altering experiences, and I'm using that as an analogy of a technology that can give us quick access to certain things. And what I have learned about that is sometimes things that can happen quickly and dramatically can overload systems, and specifically can atrophy natural ways of being. And so while I think that there's absolutely an important role of technology, again, in supporting, it's like the mind should be in service of the heart and the soul and the wisdom of the body. So there's a role for all of it, but where we can get into trouble is when we allow the mind or the technology or the platform to take control. And so my perspective around anything, AI, blockchain, anything, is that it should be a servant of humanity, and that what we really have the opportunity to focus on is, and this is actually a really kind of, I think it's actually radical, but also becoming more and more common perspective. Zach Bush is talking about this a lot. There are a lot of, I just got off 2 epic calls this morning with client friends who we had this exact conversation. It's like stripping away the complications and allowing the natural complexity of life, learning how to dance with the complexity, not trying to oversimplify everything and make everything kind of an easy button, so that we don't have to move our bodies ever. We don't have to think ever. We don't need to relate to a human ever. We just strap on, like I had this situation in Davos where somebody was pitching me on his startup, where it's like a device where you put on virtual reality, augmented reality eye set to insert software of you being in nature and moving, so you could move your body with other fake people there, so you feel like you're with other humans.
That's a bit frightening.
And I'm
the
getting
idea of that is kind of frightening.
And I'm like, wow, okay. Because in context, I live in the jungle. And I used to live in Toronto for many, many years. And my ex-husband was actually a 5-time tech startup guy. So I've been in the tech world since I was a little baby, teenager, actually 19 years old. And so I've seen the whole .com thing, and I've seen it on the front lines, in the trenches of it. And I've seen many, many cycles of this kind of like savior projection that technology is going to save us from everything. And I really, again, I believe in technology. I love my phone. I love being able to be here with you guys, talking from Costa Rica to Canada. But I also think there is a real wisdom in stripping away the distractions and going back to the ancient wisdom, the infinite intelligence that is so far beyond what any of we humans could possibly design in the form of any technology, software, whatever, hardware. And I'm talking about the wisdom of your body, that feeling of when there's something, somebody lurking in the corner and you just know, you feel it and you've got to get away. When you walk into a room and you connect instantly with someone, when you're out surfing and you have a whole book idea download into your mind, when you're thinking about, how to move forward on something, and all of a sudden you get all these instant kind of inspiration, collective consciousness, and then we can cultivate through practices such as meditation, surfing, movement of your body, breath work, super powerful. All of these different modalities can actually help us to get into, even getting into interdimensional, different levels of consciousness all day, every day. And I can say that because that's how I live. That's how, I go through the day. And these require practice, and they're very well documented, these different things in different Buddhist, yogic, Christian, all kinds of different traditions. And so what I am really excited about is balancing this obsession with technology, and everybody thinks we're simplifying life. But when we look at levels of mental health deterioration, epidemics of loneliness, levels of obesity, I mean, we could go on and on and on with the societal indicators that we are clearly not thriving. And really what I think when I talk about infinite intelligence, this kind of paradox of artificial intelligence versus infinite intelligence, I'm talking about getting back outside, getting into nature, taking your shoes off, putting your feet on the ground, sitting around a campfire, going outside when it's snowing out, walking into a park. I used to run all over Toronto. I used to run marathons. There's green space everywhere in Toronto. Going outside, noticing the changes of the season, the clouds in the sky. And as you start to tune into the infinite ecosystem of information, sound, sight, vibration, we can actually develop sensitivities to ultimately start to literally know how other people are feeling. I'm sure many people listening can relate, especially if you tend to be far more empathetic by nature. That feeling of like, oh, I'm thinking about a friend, I'm going to send them a message, and you pick up your phone and they just messaged you. That kind of telepathy.
That happens to me all the time.
All the time.
All day, all the time. Yeah.
Synchronicities is another thing. Carl Jung talked about this many, many decades ago. It's like you just hear about something and then somebody shows up and hands you the thing you were just thinking about. Synchronicities. Like, I call it magic. That's a fun way to talk about it. But these are all scientifically very proven. Flow state, Murray mentioned that earlier. And this is a real thing. Everybody wants to make things simpler with artificial intelligence. And my experience, and I know this from my own practices working with thousands of people over 20 years, are that we can access a superhighway of creativity, of productivity, etc., by quieting our minds, by doing the deep inner work to clear the busyness and the noise of, like I said, trauma, wounding, imposter syndrome. I don't belong here. I'm no good at this. These are the voices that are just really like clouding, creating the static on the radio station, So once we do those levels of work, which is, again, not as easy as just, putting a new software system in your computer. Admittedly, it takes time, it takes work. But in my mind, it's far more sustainable, it's regenerative, it's life enhancing. And as we tap more and more into our connectivity to each other, to nature, to energies from literally all over the universe. I've been watching, this is so random, but I started as a physics major at Queen's. And so I've been really interested in physics since I was in high school. And I just was watching a show on quantum physics and how to learn how to tap into your intuition. And they literally were sharing that we can have an experience with a molecule here that will impact a molecule on the outer edges of the universe. And so this is the level of sensitivity that is available to us. And I believe that our ancient, ancestors had these levels of intelligence, and maybe not, I don't know about the cognitive sophistication, of course, because I wasn't there. But, and so when I talk about this, I think it's an opportunity to cultivate a toolkit for navigating life, not only, real estate decisions and life decisions and business decisions and parenting decisions, literally all of life, so that we don't outsource our thinking. And the other piece that I actually haven't mentioned specifically is creativity. And this is a piece that I think is really, really critical, that we cannot underestimate the power and the importance of. I believe that creative expression. And again, I've been studying human potential for over 25 years. I have worked with thousands of people. I think that the core human needs are to feel seen, loved, and safe, and to be creatively expressed. And I think that creative expression, whether it's through conversation, through dancing in the kitchen, through actual art, through the business we do, whatever it is, however it is that we express creatively, I believe that is the fountain of youth, and that is the plug-in into infinite energy and potential. And so when we use technologies, be like, oh, I don't need to design a house. I don't need to do this thing. I don't need to write an essay, or I don't need to write a report. I'll just get AI to do it. We're actually short-circuiting one of the most core human needs, and that one of the greatest plugins into life force energy, which is the act of creation in and of itself. So I just think we need to be really mindful. It's like they thought by building suburbs, everyone had to drive. It was going to make everyone's life better and easier because no one had to talk to anyone and nobody had to go anywhere. And now we realize, like, oops, living in a village with people and connecting all day, every day is actually what makes people. And I live in a blue zone here in Costa Rica. So this is where people live the longest on the planet. And it's largely due to human connection, having a sense of purpose, connecting and gathering in groups. So these are some of the elements that we know from science, from research, and just from common sense are what have humans thrive and live happier, longer, healthier lives, and ultimately create more value on the planet. And I just speak for I speak for the trees, I speak for for all of us in really reminding us that sometimes less is more, and really reminding us to sometimes strip away distractions, strip away things that we think are going to make life easier. When, like it's, for example, it's easier to sit at home than go to the gym, for example, but there's an innate need and an innate outcome to going out and exerting effort in any kind of.
It's the stuff that you can't see. It's the frequency. Exactly. We're made of energy, right? We've talked about this many times. It's all the things that are not right in front of you that are maybe not easily seen, but they're easily accessed. It just takes the effort and the creativity, like you said, yes, and not moving so far away from that. It's just about finding that balance, I think.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of something that I've been really tapping into this week is that coincidences don't happen, and that you're almost willing it, or, talking within your inner self, that truly believing it, truly like releasing and letting go, those whatever you're hoping for will fall into line. And that was something big for me to realize this week. But for people like myself or someone that's listening, what is your ideal morning look like? Like, what do you do? What do you wake up to be in this sense of consciousness? Like, what do you, because it probably looks very different from my morning. So I would love to know how your morning starts off. Like,
well, okay.
What does your life look like?
I will share this. I take this very seriously. Thank you for asking, because honestly, if I could share nothing else on this podcast, what I'm about to share is probably the most important thing, which is a highly curated morning. I call it a morning activation. So my personal current morning activation, and it has changed, it changes probably almost monthly, depending on where I'm at.
I like the word activation.
Yeah,
activation. Yeah. So for me, it involves some core elements. So I wake up usually around 5:30. Today I surfed right away. I went and grabbed my board and went and surfed. Then I came back. I connected with my kids. I prioritized my schedule so that I can be there for my kids. I've been working for myself for over 20 years, and that was something that was not negotiable for me, that I fit. So dropping them off at school is important to me, certain things. And I have made many choices to create that. And music is always an element. So I play music in the car, we laugh, we dance. So there's laughter, there's joy, there's dancing. I curate that. I have playlists that are literally happy car songs. I connect with the kids in a conscious way. I ask them annoying questions like how and tell me more. And they indulge me still. They're teenagers, but so there's that connection piece. Then I usually listen to Abraham Hicks on the way home when I drop the kids off, and get some spiritual connection and reminders to set my vibration at a certain level of awareness, that I create my own reality and that I have the ability to, from my emotional state, I have the ability to control the outer circumstances of my life. And then today I came home and I went to a yoga class right after that. And yoga for me is I adore surfing, but if yoga for me is it's my therapy, it's my religion, it's my movement practice, it's everything for me. And I bring everything to my mat. So if I'm going through, let's say, a triggered time, I've gone through a lot of changes in the last 10 years, and Murray has been there for me through many of them. And I use my yoga mat also to be honest and real. So I cry on my yoga mat a lot. I bring my emotions to my yoga mat. Give myself permission to have the full range of emotions that I have. And I practice loving myself, having compassion for myself, for all of the ups and downs of life. And then after that, I come home and I make myself something to eat. I have a little ritual with my latte, of like a pleasure ritual, to sit down and give myself permission to have pleasure and joy, because I'm a really hard worker and I have pushed myself to extremes and burnt out many times.
So you mean you do all this before coffee, Lindsay?
I was just going to ask this is all before 9 o'clock? Like what?
Wow.
And then, although lately I've started.
I told you it was different from my routine.
Lately, I started to have coffee in the morning. This is a switch. So depending, because again, that was something new. And now I luxuriate sometimes in my bed and I might not go surfing. That's new, because I'm like giving myself even more. And then I start to work. And the spoiler alert about this is that when I sit down at my desk to work or to have clients, I'm in such an altered state that I can get done in 2 hours what I used to be able to get done in 2 weeks. And I have many friends that come down here regularly, and I'm sure that that you guys can attest. You've been down here. Friends who literally are the founders of venture capital funds that run massive, massive empires that are based in New York City or Silicon Valley. And they tell me they have never been more productive, creative. They would never move back to New York City or Silicon Valley because they have never been more productive at their actual jobs back in the financial industries and tech startups, et cetera. And we joke, we call them board meetings when we go out surfing together. We're like, let's go have a board meeting. So that's my morning activation. But the core elements are moving your body, quiet your mind to tap into your creative spirit. And nature is a core element. Music is a core element. Connection, human connection, wherever. It can be just with the research shows it can just be with your barista at the coffee store. It doesn't have to be. In my case, I have 4 kids, so I have a lot of human connection in that way, but it doesn't need to be, it can be literally any human connection. So that's been, and every one of those elements is very backed up by scientific data, but I've gotten there intuitively just because certain things make me feel better. So my invitation to anyone listening is just to follow the good juju. If working out in the gym makes you feel alive, then do that. If going for a walk makes you feel good, do that. For me, yoga and surfing are my 2 main. I love beach walks, walk and talks, but just take a moment and get outside whenever possible. Go to a park if you live in a big city, no problem. Go sit on a bench, walk, maybe get off a subway stop early and walk into the office and pay special attention to the plants outside of buildings or the birds that are coming or going. Those are some of the key elements. And that is exactly what allows you to tap into flow state, which is very well researched. Stephen Kotler's written some great books about it, but that can help you to have an superhuman seeming level of wisdom, of knowing. And I'll just relate it quickly to real estate. I own many, I have owned and currently own different projects, real estate projects. And I think that artificial intelligence is amazing if it's helping people to, for example, prioritize costs and do a lot of the analytical work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, when it comes to choosing which land or homes or recreational properties that I'm going to buy, it's 100% an intuitive knowing. And I was walking with my friend one day and we were talking, and she's also a very successful businesswoman. And we came to this conclusion is that I will only invest in things that make me cry, things that move me to tears. When I get somewhere and I'm like, oh, it takes my breath away, or I walk in and I get goosebumps in my body, or I'm like, I know it, I feel it, or I know this is not right. That's the kind of infinite intelligence that I'm inviting people to trust more than anything. Then definitely use the software and the tools and the analytics to validate your decision, to use for your negotiations, to, scan the market, etc. But pay attention to those whispers and those nudges and that house you drive by every day and you can't stop looking at it. I've heard so many stories of people knocking on strangers' doors and it's their dream house. And that's the kind of magic that I'm just inviting people to play in, because we all have it within us. And life can become not only super fun and playful, but ultimately expansively fulfilling and amazing when we really tap into all of that intelligence.
I think people need to remember to put themselves first again, because we've gotten so distracted by so many things. And it's easy to get distracted here. Like there, you're in Costa Rica and you're surrounded by nature. Here, we're surrounded by concrete. So you forget, that there's more out there. Like people forget that they have blinders on, I guess, essentially, right? Like they forget that there's another world out there. So, I love travel for that reason, because it helps you remember that there's a big world out there that can teach you different things, different cultures, different ways of doing things. And thank you for reminding me specifically. I forgot about Abraham Hicks, because that's somebody I used to listen to. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put that back on.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I forget too. And that's why I purposely put Abraham Hicks on, because sometimes I'll be like in my head complaining about my kids or the situation, and I get in this spiral, and it could be any kind of higher level conversation. Ram Dass I love, any kind of, if people are into different religious background, anything, it doesn't matter, Bibles or Qurans, whatever, just wisdom nuggets. I love Pema Chodron to help us elevate the conversation even in our own minds. And I totally agree with you about
question your own thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use technology to free up space so that you can do those things that can raise your vibration, that can, strengthen your life force, right? And that's where you're going to be more successful and joyful at the same time. Not just, you hear so many people who are successful, but they're miserable, right? I don't want that. I want to be successful, joyful. I want to, have lots of love in my life and human connection and inspire people and be inspired. And like you said, I want to flow with the magic. And that's what I do in Costa Rica. And I keep trying to bring it back here, and it's starting to happen. It's starting to happen.
It's consistency, right? Like it's reminding yourself every day to do the little habits and the little routines, because you can fall off so easily and then fall into a spiral of negativity. And I think it happens to so many people in this rat race that we're in, trying to reach the next goal. And then you get to that goal and you're like, well, that's not good enough. I'm going to make this one now.
Yeah,
and
there's nowhere to get.
Yeah.
There's literally nowhere to get.
Exactly. I think that's the point.
Being present.
In my business coaching, she always talks about like living your ideal day. What is your ideal day? And sometimes I get so caught up in life that I don't even realize that I am living my ideal day.
Yeah.
That it's like, what else do you want?
Like celebrate those days.
You get so caught up in like the future. You thought it was going to feel differently. Like that's almost how I feel.
It's even silly stuff we get caught up in. Like you don't even realize. Like you get upset about nothing.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's when you step back and take a bigger look at the bigger picture. You're like, yeah, who cares?
Yeah. Well, and it's usually not even about what you're upset about. It's about you're just not taking care of yourself and not honoring yourself, right?
And reacting instead of absolutely. Well,
Lindsay, you're amazing. I love you. Thank you so much. Can't wait to see you in a few weeks. And we really appreciate this. It was so amazing and inspiring, and you're amazing.
I love you but it was guys perfect. So much.
What's the name of your podcast if people want to follow you?
Yeah. How can people find you?
It's called The Wake Up Call, and it's on Spotify and Apple, and my company is Alive and Awake, and I'm on Instagram as Lindsay Alive. AY, Lindsay AY Alive. And I would love to hear from you. And I often share the magic of Costa Rica and all these fun little tidbits on all those ways. So thank you so much, guys. I have so enjoyed this. I love you.
Thank you so much. See you soon, babe. Bye.
See you all next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your friends. And we'll see you all next week. Bye for now.